Back on MorningLine, our final segment with Davidson County Sheriff Daron Hall. Good to have him on with us. We'll get to your calls in a moment. I wanted to ask you this one question, and obviously your office had to deal with this, but when Judge Monty Watkins reversed the verdict in the Vanderbilt rape case, and Brandon Vandenberg and Corey Beatty were both incarcerated over here, and we all know, we were all out there as they walked out. I'm just curious, any observations you had? Were you around that day, or did you hear how it went down with the two of them and how they learned? I mean, when this happens, does someone at the jail go in there and say, hey, Brandon, your convictions have been vacated, get your stuff? How does that go down?
Yeah, most of the time, and I was here.
It's a rare instance when it happens like this.
I don't remember ever, and I'm sure it's happened, I don't remember ever a person have their case overturned before sentencing. I mean, here's what I've thought about this a lot. I mean, you know, a lot of times you hear, you know, you and I involved in something, they convict us, they send us away, we have a 10 or 12-year sentence, and then we appeal, and we have some argument for a new trial, and they give us a new trial. I mean, but that happens after we're in prison for 6 months or a year, maybe. And in this case, because they delayed sentencing, it's going to be very unique. It's unique in the sense that they weren't sentenced. Obviously, they were still in our jail. But that's very almost bizarre. And so now the fact of the way that would go down most likely is that the attorneys would be coming back and forth from the courts and talking to them about, hey, we've heard this, we heard that. And that's usually who delivers the direct information. It may get out via the media even before they actually
So the attorneys would have come, well, they were, I guess, literally in court maybe that day, and that's how they knew it was coming. But I'm just wondering, at that point, the moment when we didn't know how long it would be before they'd be released, and we were monitoring with your staff that did a very nice job helping us with that. But what, how does it go down? And did you remember, did you get any feedback? Just curious. I mean, were they incredulous? Were they surprised? Were they? I
didn't hear specifics that way. I mean, as you know, there were some changes in their bond and situations. Some bond companies, that's rare too, didn't want to stay on, and so I mean, you had some procedural things that slowed down the actual release a little bit, because some, I believe, that to be back on electronic monitoring. One bonding company wanted to be removed, one bond was increased. All that's a little unique. Like I said before, normally that's not the way it would go down.
But these were guys, but would you imagine any inmate, and you've been around inmates all this time, and they're sitting there knowing sentencing's coming, and they're knowing, if they're reading any reports, they're looking maybe at 20 years. So at this point, you know, they're done. Stick a fork in them. And then all of a sudden, because of this juror's conduct, a reprieve, they're going home. I'm just wondering, what would have gone through an inmate's mind?
I've said this around the office. I mean, can you imagine what last night's sleep and meal felt like compared to tonight? I mean, when that happened, I mean, your life literally, and guess what? I mean, they also should be smart enough to realize that that's coming back.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. It still hangs over their head. But that night, they were out. They were home with their families. They were in a soft bed. They were eating what they want. They had a shower. All of this kind of stuff in privacy. And yeah, it's still coming back, folks. Make no mistake. But they're going to. It's going to be a while.
It keeps ringing in my ear. I remember Dr. Phil came in and interviewed Beatty, I think,
and you know what? What he told him then is going to come back to that Phil interview is going to work against him in trial, I think.
Yeah, he had but I remember Dr. Phil saying something like, you know, you will never eat another one of your mother's meals, you know, but basically, you know, kind
at least for the next 20 years, something like that.
Well, he even used the 120-year estimates, because if you stack the sentences, but the issue was the likelihood that you would never be, you know, around your mother or whatever. And I was thinking about, you know, that as the turn has occurred. But it would be a tough way to live. I mean, you know, tough way in the sense, and I'm not taking anything away from what happened, and that's very serious. But you know, you go from this to now you're back to you're going back to, you know, it'll be an interesting few months.
Would you imagine the taste of having experienced for a few months their incarceration and recognizing you're going to eventually move to the prison, but having sampled prison life to that degree, or jail life, and now they're out and they're thinking about what it was like, how bad a taste in their mouth? Now, you run a clean prison, but prison's not a picnic, right? So, or jail is not a picnic. What do you think they're thinking in their mind? Like, oh my gosh, I never want to go back there.
Yeah, I think the first one was pure shock. I mean, I heard them both say that, and I believe they didn't really, for whatever reasons, didn't believe that was going to happen. Didn't know what to expect. Neither one had ever been in jails before.
They didn't think they'd be convicted.
Sheer shock.
But once they spent time in there, what is it you think that probably is the hardest thing for an inmate when they're brought in for the very first time to adapt to in a jail?
That you have no control of anything. You don't control your TV. You don't control what you eat. You don't control when you go to sleep. You don't control control where you're going. You don't control who you see, who you talk. I mean, you just lose every bit of that. And if you're a young person, and I'm using that as a 20-year-old who has text messages, phone calls, you know, runs and goes in cars and eats and plays sports and has all the attention, and you literally are in a jumpsuit with no access and proof of anything. You can't communicate with. You can get on a phone, but it's nowhere near the same situation. We control who you talk to, when you talk to them. We record what you say. We provide the meals. We're going to feed you something. You don't get to watch what you want to watch. I mean, it's just...
It's basically your worst nightmare.
It has to be from the shock of that.
Not to mention some of the other fine, upstanding folks you're sharing property with.
That's right. You don't sleep well.
You're not too excited about that. So I'm just thinking right now, as they're out there, Vandenberg and Beatty both, while they're probably enjoying whatever they can with their families now, are thinking, this is still there, and I could be going back there.
I'm not so sure this wouldn't be harder. Because the shock of it was you never prepared. This time you know what to prepare
for. Now you know
for.
Exactly what you're getting, and it's every bit as bad as you feared, probably.
I mean, that's just my take on it. But
just
for
curious.
People who are,
I was just curious how that played out. So, but at that point then, they were released, and from your perspective now, it's done until...
Is it November? Do we have a trial?
Yeah, something along those lines. I'm trying to remember exactly the date that they've scheduled. And, you know, there's all these talks of would there be a plea deal or something along those lines, and that's all conjecture right now. But for them, I do wonder, I wonder what you thought. Having sampled jail life and recognizing that there'd be a prison life later, you just have to wonder, you know, they had to surrender their passports, but do they have the means, the wherewithal? No indication that they would do this, of just disappearing. That's why I could understand one of the bonding companies who was not exactly stoked about being called back on, and the judge forced one of the bonding companies to remain.
Yeah, I felt the same way. I thought, you know, if I was a bonding company and my job is to ensure someone's coming back, I can't imagine that would be a good risk.
Yeah, because it's different now. It's one thing, see, that's why I thought it was fair for the bonding companies to have second thoughts the second time around, because the first time, both these guys, I think, thought that they maybe would be found not guilty. So yeah, okay, we'll bond them out. They're not going to run because they think they're going to be acquitted. Well, now they know they've been convicted. Now they know all that same evidence and potentially more, thanks to the Dr. Phil interview, is out there and it's going to come back to haunt them again. They know what awaits them. And the fact is, folks, if they go on trial again, they're going to be convicted again, in my opinion. The question is, will it be the same degree and all that? They're going to be convicted of something. They know this. And the new trial is set for November 30th as we speak. So would they consider, I'm going to Mexico, and whatever entails that, to run from the law like this, jumping bond, living your whole life looking over your shoulder, unless your El Chapo has unlimited resources, that's very hard, isn't it?
I watched a piece of 60 Minutes last night, the Whitey Bulger situation, when he was on the run for years and years, and again, he was and I think they had $800,000 in his apartment but the truth was, you never really would live normal life, whatever that means. Now, granted, prison life wouldn't be normal either, but you know, I don't know that I could live worrying every day. Today's the day they're going to find me, catch me, whatever. So that would be a part of it. But like you said, the risk is there if you're a bonding company or a family member or whatever, that person who dreads going back into that situation does something silly and flees, and then eventually you know, causes a lot of problems. I mean, most of these folks, I think in both cases, the family's money is up. On the bonds, and so what happens is that if Nick leaves and your mother has put up a $300,000 home of hers. Oh,
is that what it works? If you go through a bonding? Now, if you go through a bonding company, it's $300,000. You pay them $30,000, and they post the bond, right? And but your home's not backing up that $300,000. Does the bonding company force you to do that?
Yeah. It depends on what your bond is and amounts. And I'm just using generally. I'm not sure whose money was up for what, but whatever that is, and however that's you know, levied, if you will, then you would lose that. And the family who's put that up, neither one of these kids had a job, neither one of them had their own money, so someone's putting up the money of the bonding company. That completely is gone. The bonding company would be out the money, that's why they're risking it. And literally, just think about it. I mean, if you do that, you literally forever have to cut off all communication with your family and everybody else. You can't. I mean, that would be very easy to track where you are. And so you're literally changing life permanently. You'll never speak or see or be around people again.
And the truth is, then, what you just explained there, and people would say, "Wow, well, they could, you know, if you're Vandenberg, he's going to take off. He's in Cal." Not going to happen for the very reason you said. It's just not. I mean, if there was a way to pull it off, it's just not realistic, right?
I tell you, I was several years ago. I met the guy Frank Abagnale. He was the Catch Me If You Can.
Oh, I was just watching that show this weekend, the one Leonardo DiCaprio played in.
I met him.
Did you? Yeah.
Oh my God, the most fascinating guy in the world.
Doesn't he work for corrections now, or the FBI, to help track absconders like this?
He is.
If you've never seen Catch Me If You Can, like I said, it was on this weekend, and I've seen the whole movie, but I was watching a portion. So what was he like? Just, I mean, this guy knew how to fake identities. Brilliant guy. Passed the bar without even studying, and he
was very basic. He would use. I mean, I remember one of the stories was, he flew, and it wasn't a pilot, but he acted as if though he were a pilot. He got wings off of someone's, and they went in the hospitality room in the airport back in the day, and sat down and had drinks like he was. I think he was like 19, but he was acting. He went and bought a uniform and out of a magazine.
How was he able to fly again without?
He was flying in the jump seat, or he was. And at one point they asked him to take over the plane, because they thought he was a pilot.
Yeah.
And he used that to get from city to city, and he would say things like, and I don't remember the lingo, but he would sign up and just everything was all made up. And he was in Atlanta as a lawyer. At one point he faked to be a doctor.
He actually got married and then finally got nailed.
It cost France and Paris, maybe. I think they caught up with him and brought him back here.
Where'd you meet him?
He was at a conference speaking, and I was the president at the time. So you spend half the morning, and he was fantastic as a speaker and just captivating as a story, and again, just very bright, not proud of anything, doesn't make any money, didn't make any money on the movie, doesn't make any money, and I forget the arrangement.
But he's not incarcerated anymore. He's worked it out, which is the key on this. But the trick on that is he's a unique individual. As you said, you met him. Brilliant.
Yes.
How many people? The fact is, most criminals are just flat dumb.
Right.
They're not going to pull that stuff, and they just are.
Well, you're emotional about it, and they're doing it. If you were doing it for different reasons, the emotions of I want to, and I think you're right. I think it's very, very unlikely.
Yeah, a guy like him, that bright, maybe you pull it out. Perry March.
A great example of somebody that tried to get away from it, and it's going to catch up with you. I mean, you're going.
He got away for a while, but they eventually got Perry March, and he's at, by the way, one of those prisons that's locked down right now. Thinking Mountain City, the one way out there in the middle of nowhere. So, Sheriff, listen, an interesting conversation. Really appreciate it. Keep in touch.
We'll do that.
We'll follow how things happen in the coming days and weeks with the races, the political races. You're going to have a new mayor you're going to be working with, and whoever that mayor is someone that will have to be involved with you in the renovations, right?
The next best,
and how all that, and the city council, of course.
Yes, looking forward to it.
Always good seeing you. We'll be in touch. All right, we'll take a break. Be back with a programming note about tomorrow right after this. Stay with us.